underutilized feature in Ancestry.com, I think, is in the census records. So they do have a really good indexed catalog of census records. But if you click on one here and come in, again, you'll see all the standard information. You'll see the suggested records, which I have mentioned before, or you can come in and even in Find a Grave or Netherlands-based records, all these different things. Really wonderful set of suggested records here available. But what we want to focus on now is this feature called Neighbors, or View Others on Page. So this comes out of the database that Ancestry has, and as you click on this, it's going to know everybody else on the same sheet, essentially, for that census record. So what's really cool is I can pull this one up about Mr. Von Breck, and the interesting thing that stands out, you'll see all these different names listed in his neighborhood from the same sheet. But what you start to find is an interesting pattern if you look at the birth locations. So they have one born in Holland, one in Holland, one in Holland, one in Holland, then Utah, as you would expect since this was in Utah. There's one person from Denmark, and then Holland, 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 and you see a pattern here, right? There's one from Australia, then more Holland again, and clearly this was an area of town where a lot of Dutch immigrants were living. And as I did more research and talked to relatives, I found that this street in this area where he lived and where many of my ancestors lived was called Dutchtown. And so that was an easy thing for me to recognize after I had used this feature in the census records. So take advantage of that. It will give you some really interesting insights as to who neighbors were, which you may also find as I scroll through this. I find other relatives of mine that were living in this same area, and I click on a few of them. And by the way, you don't have to stay in this record. You can go in and say, take this record here, George Nuttbaum, and then you can pull up under his suggested records and maybe find a different year of census record and say, yeah, here's the 1900 census or whatever, and then just what we just did, we can go in and click on the neighbors and see, 10 years before who was living in that neighborhood. So it'll give you some great insights into who lived where in town and who your ancestors were living by, and most likely you'll find some family and friend connections there.